Well, a push to reduce the COVID isolation period from 7 to 5 days will be a key topic at the next round of National Cabinet that will be held in Sydney today. Joining us live is the Deputy Opposition Leader Sussan Ley. Sussan, good to see you. Thanks for your time. So do you think, in light of the Job Summit being on this week and the skills shortages, the drastic skills shortages that you're well and truly aware of, should that well be a matter of necessity to drop that isolation period?
I think it's great that it's up for discussion, Pete, because many of your viewers will know that whether they're in the workforce or whether they're a small business or an employer, that difference between 5 and 7 days can be quite significant. Of course, National Cabinet will take the health advice, but good on Dom Perrottet as New South Wales Premier for identifying it as an important area of discussion. I think the Prime Minister might also have identified it as an important area of discussion with the South Sydney Rabbitohs. There's a bit of a question to be answered there about whether his favourite team was given the heads up that this might be something that was discussed and the effect that that would have on the players.
Well, I mean, if it's New South Wales, wouldn't that be the Premier's call? Wouldn't that shield the Prime Minister from anything there? Sure.
But did the Prime Minister, who would have perhaps known the agenda ahead of time, note to the Rabbitohs that it was on the agenda and it might be discussed and there might be a slightly different outcome to the isolation period? I'm just asking the questions, Pete, and I think they're questions that need to be answered.
Do you not like the South Sydney Rabbitohs, Sussan Ley?
I love the rugby league. I live on the border, so we perhaps pivot a little bit more to AFL, but right. I'm very happy with all the sporting teams and the contribution they make to public life. But I just think this, all seriousness, Pete, this is an important question. And I note that the Prime Minister ducked it at the press club and probably needs to front the cameras and actually answer, did he give his team a heads up? OK, the Job Summit begins tomorrow. You're not going to be there. Any regrets about that, one day out? Not one single regret. I'm looking forward to going to Lismore, where I don't believe Anthony Albanese has been since the election, although he was happy to stand there and do lots of sort of political pieces during the campaign from Lismore. But in all seriousness, the people of Lismore at that point in their recovery from the floods earlier this year, where there's still great pain, great hardship and great anxiety. So I'll be on the ground in Lismore while the talkfest goes on in Canberra. We've had carefully choreographed pieces coming out during the week, and we note that the unions have stepped up their involvement and there'll be at least a quarter of the seats at the summit. So look, good luck to everybody there, especially those who are attending in good faith. I don't believe that good faith is there from the government's perspective on every front, but I still welcome the discussions. However, I'm out, I was in the Macedon Ranges yesterday in Romsey and Lancefield. I'm in southwest Sydney on Friday, Lismore in between, talking to small businesses, talking to manufacturers, talking to employers, and just hearing directly from them. I mean, they're not going to have their TVs on or the radios on tuned to the Job Summit, but they are expecting outcomes. Well, actually, they're expecting that the government could have announced measures to improve the pressures that they're under already, instead of waiting for this talkfest to conclude. OK, well, I mean, you'll be out there talking to small businesses. As you would have seen this week, there's already a deal that's been struck between the small business groups as well as the unions. There's now perhaps reforms coming to the gig economy, and this, amongst others, will be discussed this week. So wouldn't it be better to be there and be part of those discussions? Well, if they were in good faith, maybe. But if the government has in fact already made up its mind, and the main players at this talkfest are the unions, who are now, as we see, inserting themselves into every set of arrangements between business and its employees in a way that isn't always helpful. And of course there's a place for unions in the workplace. But when I talk to small businesses, they want to have the conversations with their workers that are direct and that are helpful and that are constructive, and they don't need a union boss inserting an agenda that doesn't actually work for either of them. And that's the constant message I get back from small business. So let's look at this from the perspective of putting industry, business, communities at the centre of the decisions that are made, and not having some arbitrary decisions made from the outside by the unions, looking after the union's interests, not the people's interests, and not the communities, and certainly not the economies when it comes to the pressures that we're under and the changes that need to happen in order to start relieving some of those pressures.
OK, Sussan Ley, the Deputy Opposition Leader, thank you for your time as always. We'll talk to you soon.